Hello! Looking at something a little bit different today, and I'm thinking about what happens when you go away for a weekend and you want to do some flying. Lots of times we'd take sort of big batteries like this is only 5,000 amp, maybe a 20,000 amp 6 cell. You'd take your charger along, you'd plug it in and you'd charge up your other batteries. And some of these, like this one, has a USB connection and you could charge up your phone that way. But what if you're out and you want more flexibility? You brought your laptop with you to do some editing. That needs a charge, but the other end of it has your regular 3-pin plug. This is what we have in the UK, by the way. Other countries, of course, have different pins. What do you do then? What do you do if you want to power stuff or charge stuff which doesn't quite fit into that? And that's what I'm looking at today. This is the AC50 from, I think it's Bluetti or Bluetti. It is essentially a 500 watt hour portable power station. And you can plug in USBs, you can plug in regular plugs. And I thought this could be the solution that people are after for sort of the weekend camping. It's not for backpacking, it's a bit heavy, but I'll show you what's in the box. Let's get it out and see. First off, we've got some instructions and bits and pieces there. Next, in this box, we've got a bunch of power type cables. We'll look at those in more detail in a second. And lastly, the box itself, which I'm relieved to find has a large handle. Quite a nice colour, this blue. You can get it in orange as well. What's immediately noticeable about this, you've got 4 USB slots, 2 220 to 240 volt 3-pin sockets. You can get these in the European and US versions. 2 different looking 12 volt outs and another 12 volt out there. This is quite similar to what you'd see in caravans and stuff, to run 12 volt stuff there. Let's go to close up and have a bit more of a look at it. Also, it is pretty heavy, and me holding this up like that, my arm's starting to get shaky. So here are the cables that were in that brown box unpacked, although not unwrapped at this point. I just wanted to go through to show you what's what in terms of what you get. The main thing you'll notice is this big power brick. This is for actually charging it. That side plugs in. This is the power cable side. That's if you're going to plug it in via the mains. You've also got the option to charge it via a cigarette adapter. Now, do people still have cigarette adapters in their cars? Some do, some don't. It's kind of a bit hit and miss these days where they seem to have disappeared, but that's an option. A third option is this cable. Now, I haven't got the bit that goes with this cable. This is an adapter to attach to solar panels. Bluetti, if I'm saying that right, do actually sell, I think, 120 watt solar panel. Probably not the best thing for the UK, but they do it, and you can charge from that one. It says about 4 to 5 hours to get a charge if the sun's out for you and stuff. And finally, we have a USB-C cable. Yeah, aside from those 4 USBs, there's a 5th one, which is USB-C. So let's grab the unit and see how this all connects. And this is what we get. Barely fits in frame. So you see we've got the 3 regular USBs, each doing up to 3 amps. Then we've got that 5th USB-C. Now, interestingly, USB-C is rated at various things. So 5 volts at 3 amps, 9 volts at 3 amps, 12 volts at 3 amps, 15 volts at 3 amps, and 20 volts at 2.25 amps. I'm guessing there's some intelligence with your device that when you say I want this much at this rating, it basically goes ahead and does it. Those are your 2 3-pin plugs, and then you've got your 12 volts at 3 amp outputs there and your 12 volt at 10 amp outputs there. That is most at home for what we used to have a caravan, and we had 12 volt sockets, but we also had, we were always hooked up, so we always used the 220 amp sockets as well. You got some buttons here. If we press this one, hold it for 2 seconds, it turns on. You can see we're running at about 50% power. Nothing input at the moment, and then we've got 2 different things to turn on DC. So if we hold down the DC button for 2 seconds, let's just zoom in a sec, you'll see now it says DC on. Similarly, I can hold down AC and it switches AC on. So we can individually turn on these AC sockets and the DC sockets. Just turn those off a sec. Not that there's anything going on. On top here, we actually have wireless charging. So if you've got a phone, lots of latest phones do it these days. I've got an iPhone XR. If I put that on top, nothing happens. I'm guessing because that needs DC output. Let's put that on. Yeah. Up it comes with the charge indicator, and we're putting out about 3 watts. We have a look here. No, it's gone up to 5 watts now. 6 watts. So it tells you how much it's outputting. Turn it round. And there are 2 things of interest at the back. let me just take this cover off because we don't need that right now. This is the input for where you'd actually charge it, and then you've got a light, which is pretty bright, but not so much under my own lights. It goes very bright, not as bright, and then it goes into an SOS mode. So the 3 dashes slow, and then the fast ones. The international code for help me. Now, one thing I want to do is try and put this into sort of more regular battery things, because my channel here, you'll probably be used to using these batteries and talking about milliamp hours in cell counts. So in order to figure out what this was in terms of a battery, if it was equivalent to this, I think I've done this right. You take the amount of watt hours, which is 500, you times that by 1,000, which gets you 500,000, then you divide it by the voltage of the battery, and the voltage of this battery is 11.1, so it's a Li-ion battery rather than Li-poly, and that gets you essentially a 3S cell of 45,000 and a bit milliamp hours. So not massive, but pretty big all the same. Equivalent, oh, this is 4S, but this is quite a skinny looking 4S. Equivalent to about sort of 9 of these blocked together, so you can kind of see how that sort of space would fit in. Not too dissimilar, of course. Line cells, lipolymer cells, all the same thing. Slightly different voltages, slightly different chemistry. There you go. What I'm going to do next is charge this thing up and try plugging some stuff in, see what sort of figures we get from it. Now, having plugged it in via the mains adapter, you can see we're getting an input of 87 watts going up and down, and it's not silent running. You probably notice we've got these vents on the side here, and there's air coming out of that one, and there's, I say not coming out of that one, I don't know if it sucks it through there and over that one to keep itself cool, and I expect it's going to be the same when it actually runs, but I'll get this up to full capacity first and we'll see exactly how much it can do. Notice it's got a little sort of screensaver, just turns itself off occasionally when it doesn't need to be used. So with the thing all charged up, I'm running the laptop here, and this comes down to about how many watts your power pulls, about how much this can support. This can put out 300 watts of power. It actually has a peak power of 450 watts, but that's not something you'd pull all the time. So it's a case of what you connect up and how much power it pulls is going to be, does it support it or not. We have a look at the front of the panel. It's pulling about 21 watts, so there's loads of power there at the moment. So if I was to add, let's turn the DC on, put my phone on. Now we're certainly putting 30 watts. So what about something else? Let's try putting a charger in as well. I'm going to charge this 5200 milliamp hour 4S 1C, and currently we are pulling 6 watts on DC, 42 watts powering this and this. So let's now say start, and this is going up to 3.2. That's now 5.2 amps. This fan has just kicked in, and now we're putting 125 watts of AC power, no watts of DC because I think it's charged. Now what I don't have is any of the DC 12 volt outs to use this. I found out these ones are mainly used in LED lighting, so if you've got somewhere where you want to light up your area, perhaps camping and stuff, those are for you. Lots of things you get in these, especially in camping stuff, kettles, toasters, that sort of thing, and obviously your 3-pin plugs for everything in the UK. But yeah, you could use it to do quite a bit within that power ratio. So I can actually quite happily charge several batteries at once, plus charge up my laptop, put some USB devices in, put my wireless charging in, and still have a little bit more power to spare. The question of how long you can charge that in comes down very much to how many watts you're putting out. Right now we're putting out a total of 125 watts to charge all this stuff, and we can do a quick calculation to see how long that will last. Okay, so in order to work out how long something will run for, you take the amount of watts into consideration. Now what I'm doing here, I'm charging up this battery, but I'm pretending it's a smaller one. So I fly 5-inch quads mostly, and I would charge those at between 1.3 and 1.8 amps depending on the battery. Let's say 1.5 is about the average. So that is charging at 1.5 amps, and that is putting out 35 watts of power. What you do, you take the amount of watt hours in this battery, which is 500. You then divide that by the power consumption, which is on this 35. So 500 divided by 35 equals 14.2. So charging a battery for a 5-inch quad, say a 1500 milliamp hour 4S, you would get about 14 hours worth of charge, which would do you, it varies on batteries because it takes a while to balance, but maybe 40 minutes of battery. You'd get a whole bunch of batteries done. And you can work out all your different power consumptions, just working out exactly how many watts you're pulling. And, you know, it's cumulative, so you could plug something else in there, you could plug something else in there, you could put some stuff on it, it's all going to go up, but you can work out about how long it will last. So if I whacked this up to 5.2 amps of charge, so you can see that is going upwards. We are charging 4 cells at 5.2 amps. This telling us that means it's doing about 83 watts. And here it tells us we're doing 93 watts. We're also running this as well. So again, we can use the same calculation. We can take 500, divide it by, it's flicking between 94 and 93, so let's say 94, and we get 5 hours. So obviously we're increasing the amount of amps. If we get a bunch of these batteries, we can charge for about 5 hours, which probably means about 6 or so cycles of this. And you can hear that fan's going on now because it's obviously putting out more power. So one thing I thought might be very useful for these people going camping with certain medical conditions is the use of this type of machine. Now I've got something called sleep apnea, which many people have. It's basically when during the night you stop breathing and then your brain has to wake you up. You end up very bad sleep, and what you end up using is one of these machines. It's called a CPAP machine. A hose is attached to a mask. Basically I cosplay as Darth Vader every night, and basically this detects if you stop breathing. It pumps some air into you, and basically you get a much better night's sleep, and your risk of dying is much less. That's always good. Anyway, this unit takes, according to what's written down the bottom, 60 watts. Although its power supply here does say 80 watts. So I'm wondering what this will take if I turn it on. This is going to be very loud. So right now that's saying 23 watts, not too much at all, but it's on this thing called ramp up, so that's not full power, it sort of ramps up as it goes. Turn it off. So even if that was pulling 60 watts, if we take our 500 watt hours divided by 60, we get about 8.3 hours. Now if you use a humidifier as well, which I used to, but there were some problems with them, so they've recalled them at the moment, hence I've got this filter, that would obviously take a bit extra power, so that might give you less. But the straight CPAP that I've got here, that's pulling 20 watts at the moment. I think that would ramp up a lot higher once it got going. But even at like 60 watts, as I said, 8 hours sleep, which is pretty good going. If you're going camping, it doesn't stop you. Previously, I've gone away and I haven't taken the machine because you sort of, you know, risk it for 1 or 2 nights. But it's not healthy. If you can use it, it's better. So here's something I found interesting, and it's a bit hit and miss, and it seems working fine at the moment. This was the actual little TV and DVD combo we had in our caravan. It was quite expensive to buy the 12 volt ones, which would plug into here, so we just got a regular one. It was cheaper because we're always hooked up. Now earlier I plugged this in and it was showing 0 watts. Now it's showing 13 watts. If you've got things that are very low power consumption, under 30 watts, and this thing takes a max of 35, at the moment you can see it's just pulling 13, this will sometimes show as 0. So just be aware that very low power consumption isn't red. Anything under 30 watts, it can be a little bit hit and miss. I mean, it's gone down to 11 now. So I just wanted to make people aware of that stuff. It doesn't mean it's broken if it shows 0. It's just not very accurate below 30 watts. But I think most people would be plugging in sort of higher power things or multiple devices. But obviously it doesn't mean it's free. The power thing will still drain. It's just going to obviously last a lot longer. I mean, you just sort of go to 0 there. At 11 watts, we can run this for about 45 hours, so that's, you know, plenty of time to watch the entire Buffy box set. Hooray. So what happens if you accidentally overdo it and you pull too much power? Well, it should shut itself off nicely. Now, you're also probably wondering, how do I know how many watts something's going to pull? And I've got this Hoover here, and even small appliances like this pull an awful lot because they're trying to convert as much energy as possible into power. 550 watts this pulls. So if we turn this on, it shouldn't work. So let's see what happens. Turn the AC on and try turning it on. So it instantly comes up here with E36. And E36 here means inverter output load. Basically, we've pulled over 300 watts for 2 minutes or over 450 watts. Recover by pressing button. We just turn AC off and make on again, and we're ready. I should have really turned that power off, shouldn't I? Yeah, don't keep doing that. But anyway, so if you don't know how much things do take, that will at least shut off safely. And of course, if you've plugged in too much, the same thing will happen. An error code will shut. There's the same thing for DC and AC, so we've got that. But most things will have the power wattage written on them. Sometimes you just have to find them. Sometimes it's a bit variable. But in theory, if it's saying, I'm going to pull a maximum of 500 watts, it's generally going to be too much because you're going to be over 300 watts quite a lot of the time. Well, there you go. That was the review of the Bluetti AC50S. Very interesting box. I think I'll be using it in the future, not just for outside being on my laptop. One thing I would mention about it, as I said before, it's not something you'd backpack with. It weighs 6.2 kilograms, which is why I can't continue to lift it there. Thank goodness it's got these carrying handles. The other thing I should mention, if it's not obvious, I hope it would be, that if you're on an extended camping trip, I think the idea would be you'd use your power adapter to fill it up from the mains, and then if you were going out exploring wherever you were camping, you'd plug it into your car on these journeys, or you'd buy the solar panel, you'd plug it in there, and you'd top it up every day. And doing that, you'd have quite a reasonable way of using your energy during the week, hopefully, depending how long you were staying for. It certainly wouldn't be something you'd just buy for a bit of casual use for charging up batteries. As it is, it's a lot more expensive than just buying a battery, but it's a lot more than a battery. It's obviously got inverters in it and power management stuff and all sorts of gubbins. But in terms of comparing it with similar things, it's pretty competitively priced, I have to say. And I didn't find one that actually did quite as many watt hours as this one, so it's pretty highly spec'd for what this one is. So big thanks to Bluetti for sending this along for review. I'll be using it myself in the near future, and of course you can find links below for where you can check it out in more detail if it's something that might appeal to you. Anyway, hope that review's been helpful, and I'll catch you next one. Bye for now.
Well, you've made it to the end of the video, so thanks once again for watching. If you like what you saw, then please consider subscribing, and if you really like what you saw, then be sure to check out the link to my blog for a variety of ways in which you can help support this channel.